So now we're going to go through the theories. The theories are going to be listed out with examples of some type of novel or book or some form published that kind of guarantees the use of the theory within it. So, for instance, here's the hypodermic theory, the magic bullet theory. This theory suggests that mass communication is like a gun firing bullets off of information at passive audience. So here we have our top kind of influencers in the political realm right now, and what they say in their books are going to be incredibly persuasive. So this is a way that they can use that type of communication. Obviously, in America, it's going to look different. Mass persuasion is going to look way different than it would look like in a country like Syria or North Korea. So just keep that in mind. We also have the two-step flow theory. So this offers the relationship between mass communication and messages are not directly from sender to receiver. So there's kind of a middle ground, and this would be an example of like a fashion magazine where they're kind of the middle ground between choosing what to wear, seeing it, being exposed to it, and then following it. We also have the multi-step flow theory. So this is kind of like a reciprocal nature of sharing information. So how would that tie into a book? So let's look at Al Gore and the Climate Project and how he has written numerous novels in regards to his climate project. So I would probably go into a little bit more detail with that in my speaker's notes, but just how he was the vice president, and then he used his vice presidency to kind of talk more about the climate project, and then continued in that realm. The uses and gratification theory talks about how audience members actively actually pursue a certain media. So think about what has split our country apart lately: Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, mainstream news stations. So just certain members will seek certain things to watch and certain things to read in their books. So lastly, we have the cultivation theory. And the cultivation theory is how active we are actually when we consume mass communication. So ultimately, the message of the Hunger Games is that everything's not going to be okay. And this was actually a really, really prominent article in The Guardian that talked about its prevailing theme. So with zero trusted authority figures, like we talked about, the Hunger Games populated the message that the only person you can really trust is yourself. And this launched a kind of just a movement with young adult genre. It was dystopian all the way. It is still pretty heavy, I would say, as a genre for young adults to read. Millennials are still the highest readers in the nation. So, and we can talk about that right now. So the millennials currently read more than any generation. Sarah J. Maas is an incredible author that wrote another kind of dystopian novel. So from the readers, we're going to go to from print to digital, and this would be an example of kind of the transition from the start to where we are right now. So I could talk about Michael Hart, who started the first ebook, his Project Gutenberg. Also, when Amazon came out, they developed the e-reader. So if we were doing radio, we would talk about podcasts. If we were doing movies, we would talk about Netflix and Amazon. If we were doing newspapers, we would talk about like the digital platform of online newspapers. So if we were talking about music, we would talk about Apple iStore, Spotify, all of the new music streaming devices. So we're going to go current with these few slides. Then we're going to go in further to today's reader. So it's reported that how many people are reading what they're reading. So I don't know why this image isn't showing up, but the audiobooks are the top read type of novel. So most people are reading audiobooks, or listening rather to audiobooks. And here's an article from Publishers Weekly that reports that 940 million publishers have increased in 25% almost in audiobooks revenue and audiobooks being sold. So this is a continually growing market, and I've seen it pretty popular with students to be reading audiobooks. And then the top 3 audiobooks, according to Cosmo, we have Suzanne Collins, Mary Kay Andrews, and Alka Joshi. So I would talk a little bit about those in our speaker notes. Then we would do a little bit on our social media marketing. So we would talk about the correlation input, that all marketing takes place in the digital realm. So we would talk that the two most important factors will be the continual presence of social media posts and the successful target of a reciprocal audience. So Leigh Bardugo is an American young adult fantasy author, and she actually posts, which you can see right here, she actually posts she makes Pinterest boards for each of her costumes for her characters, so it kind of ties in a following. So it's some way to keep your audience engaged and keep it, a relevancy going with your novels. So you would use keywords, you would use social media platform and presence. You'd have a clear landing page, so when they do click on you, if I click on Leigh Bardugo, I'm going to see her author page and see that she's kind of set up. So this is a way of social media marketing that you would do it from the book's perspective. Okay, so lastly, the top selling print, ebook, and audiobook of all, as of right now, is with 500,000 copies sold in the first week. It is Suzanne Collins' prequel to the Hunger Games. So it's the Songbird and the Snakes. So we have it talked about right here. And then what we would do is we'd also link to her homepage as well. All right, lastly, we have our works cited page on speaker notes only. The works cited page will be MLA format. So that was confusing, I think, to a few of you, but yes, AP format for all of our assessments and assignments, but the works cited page on our speaker's notes will be in MLA format. There is no AP style format for a works cited page. All right, so that's it. We'd have a closing wrap up, and I have some images here. I have some here that I'm going to save and use for just kind of a wrap up, just kind of end of conclusion kind of thing. So, all right, so that's your slide. Obviously, mine went to about almost 30, but I was explaining it to you guys, so it should be no more than the minimum is going to be 15. So once you include your intro slides as well as your conclusion, it's probably going to be around there. Alrighty, well, that's it, everyone, and thank you for tuning in.